Hi, this is Pete Ekman with the RoboZone podcast. This is our first podcast for 2022, and we're less than 3 short days from kickoff 2022 for FRC with Rapid React. I have some of my favorite interviewees, some new interviewers, and I will just start with introductions with our GoPro corner update. That's what we're starting. That's where we're going to wrap this around for the next couple episodes. Is right out of the get-go, Rapid React. Exactly, it's Rapid React. So we have Kim, and we have John. Say hi, Kim, John.
Hi, Kim, John.
Hi, Kim.
Happy New Year.
You too, Pete. We are thrilled to be back, and we're excited for Saturday and see what's up next.
And
It's going to get real.
It's going to get real real fast. And with us today from Team Rush, I have the shirt. I was prepared, the world famous Hall of Fame team, Team Rush, one of our top 20 from 2020. And we had Kyle. We have Kyle and Dennis Hughes. Hi, Kyle. How, Dennis? How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Doing well.
Fantastic. Excited to get started finally.
Yes, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I've been so, even with 2020, we didn't get the full experience, and you guys will, agree with me and nod, but now it's going to be a real season, so I can't wait. So, Kim, we brought Colin and Dennis and from Team Rush on the podcast for the very first episode of the year to cover what happens to teams, especially rookie teams, in the first couple of weeks, like around build, right? Some teams have never done this before that are going to watch this. So we wanted to bring them on, right?
Yeah, we're hoping to follow the 6-week build timeline, and each week bring in a Hall of Fame or very successful veteran team to share pertinent information with the rookie teams, but not only them. As we've seen through the last 2 seasons, a lot of teams have lost membership and mentors. So we feel like there's a significant reboot going on. And we're hoping that Rush can share with us that first critical piece of what does your 6-week build timeline look like?
Well, I thank you for asking. And that's a loaded question because the most important thing we believe is that this weekend is the most important thing. When they kick off that game and all of a sudden you've got a new game to play, you have to decide what is the athlete you want to build or create that can play that game. And it's super important to understand the game. And so I think for me, and Dennis can talk a little bit more about this too, but I think for us, we're going to come in Saturday and Sunday. And of course, then starting Monday, our normal meetings, but we're going to come in Saturday and Sunday. And the biggest objective Saturday and Sunday is, do we know how to play the game? So we play a little game on my team. And that is, I run around with a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get everything organized while the students and the mentors are figuring out the game. And then when we finally get a chance to reconvene, they have to explain it to me. Now, if I don't get it, then they have to keep explaining it. And I will ask lots of questions. And the only questions I really want to know is like, when I'm on the field, what do I have to do to win? And so I will look at it a different way. But if you have maybe the parents or you have someone out there that might be able to play that game with your team, that's how I do it. Because if I get involved, I'm going to nitpick with them on the rules. And I don't have time to do that right now because I'm trying to manage everything else going on, the ordering, and all of a sudden the pieces that we need, and what the heck are we going to do, through the next few days. But getting to understand the game and the rules and the scoring, tiebreakers, how do you advance? All of these things are critical, because what you don't want is later all of a sudden, and this happens to a lot of our new teams, is later they'll say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know. We might even take our students, once they define it with me, and we may take them up to the gym or in an empty classroom and say, okay, you 3 are blue robots, you 3 are red robots, you have to do the old spider crawl or whatever, but you have to play the game so that we can physically see what's going to happen, because that also is important. What else would you say for a takeaway this weekend?
I would say the other important thing to always keep in mind is there's multiple ways to play the game. and based off of you have an auton portion of the game, you have the teleop portion of the game, you have the end game, you have the qualifying rounds, and you also have the elimination rounds. And each phase, in theory, could be different than the other.
Mhm.
So that's something to keep in mind when you try to understand how to play the game. Keep in mind there's other aspects, not just play the game.
Right. And it's really important too, because auton has been in the last few years so critically important. If you win auton and you are head to head the same with your opponent, you're going to win the match. If you win auton, and I'm sure there's data out there that says the person who wins auton wins the match, because you start out so significantly ahead from the others. So find out what you have to do during auton, and then look at it. And if you have to be able to autonomously program this robot to do those functions, then you should be able to do those functions during teleop. So look for things that you can do in both, so that you don't. I've seen some young teams say, oh, we could only do that in auton, and they never did it in teleop. And I'm like, why aren't you doing what you do in auton? So keep in mind that you want to look for commonalities and common things between the both that could really help you. But I guess my top tip for looking at the game is what does it take to do well in auton? Yeah.
Well, the other thing to understand too is the RPs.
Ranking points.
Ranking points, yes. Those are very critical. So you could be designing specifically based off of what RPs you can collect and score.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the end game too, right? Because the one thing I think you guys hit it on the mark with auton, right? A lot of teams, even if you can move, you're given 5 points like previous years. 5 points is 5 points. If you're a rookie team, you hit it, it just drives forward. There's always teams out there that'll help you. Rush is one of them. I know, because they helped us when we were rookies. But the ranking points, knowing how to score, knowing your positioning on the field, knowing not to give away points, I think is one of the
Right.
most important things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that. After you get through that first week, it's kind of a blur, because I would not help anyone by saying week 1 you must do this and week 2 you must do that, because things are everything's fluid, everything's variable. One thing I would say is get especially for new teams, and I'm addressing this more for new teams or sophomore teams, is get something moving as soon as possible. Because as soon as you can get something moving, then you can see how it works. You can see how to play the game, and you'll understand more. So if you're getting the kit robot, then get that assembled as soon as you can. And the other thing I'd point out right away is your programmers. Give them as much time as you can, as early as you can, to get on that robot and understand it. Because the more that your coders understand, the better your auton's going to be, because they could say, oh, wow, we could do this. But if you don't give it to them until, February 18th or February, 25th, and then you're supposed to go to Kettering on March 3rd, it's too late. You're just looking at a robot that's moving. And that happens. I mean, we've gone to tournaments where we help robots that don't even have functional code to move the robot yet, because they haven't gotten there. So give your software people some time. And just get that robot moving. And if you can think modularity, and you can think build a base, and then you will add to that robot, at least you're moving, and that first almost always have auton points for just moving the robot off of something. So there, if your robot moves, by the way, that's always Team Russia's #1 goal. The robot must move. I've been into too many tournaments where our robot didn't move, and so that is the #1 goal. But yeah, that would be something that I would keep in mind.
Before we go too far into the season, right? There is the aspect of getting supplies,
Oof.
right? There are mentors, and Dennis is a big build guy. I know is making sure you have the materials on hand, and some teams may not have that, especially rookie teams now. So if there's things that they need to order, would you recommend them right out of the get-go putting an order in, whether it's Andy Mark or West Coast Products or Rev or wherever you're going to get your stuff? That's pretty important right there at the get-go once the game's revealed, right? Because you
Yeah.
can start brainstorming.
And I would say absolutely, because especially since shipping and everything's so crazy right now, I wouldn't say to a new or rookie team necessarily, go out and just buy a bunch of stuff because you don't even know what you're buying. But take full advantage of the Andy Mark, what is it? It's the Andy Mark points that you can go in and you can get stuff,
the vouchers.
the voucher system. Also, I would highly suggest you look into your first dashboard, and there's all sorts of free stuff that you can go through and get. So I would highlight that. A lot of people don't know that, so I would suggest you do that. But yes, I would get as much as you can, and very honestly, if there are field pieces that you could build out of wood just to get that functional feeling of the field, see if you've got some parents that can help you do that, because or maybe your school has a construction tech program and they could build these pieces for you. But when you have some sort of a mock-up of field pieces, the game becomes more alive to you, and you understand it a little bit better because you can see what you're building for. Now, obviously, if the robot's got to hang, I would not suggest you do it out of plywood and 2x4s, because you don't want to see it drop into the ground. But the other thing I want to mention before we go too far, because I forget all these things, my head just spins, is call your veteran teams and find out who can help. Is there a field in your area? If you are from Oakland County, there are fields that you can go to and practice. We have a field you can come and practice. We have a wall in our room that any team that comes in has to paint their logo on our wall. And so there's not many, but we've only had it for a few years. But find out where you can go and see a field, and find out where you can go and practice. I know up at Kettering, you guys have a tremendous program. I don't know if you have hours for a field that people can come up and practice at, but that's super important, because you don't know what you're building until you can kind of see. It's like a basketball player wouldn't know how to play the game if he's never saw a court and understand where that basketball hoop is and how it feels. And besides that, when you take them to see a field, it makes it real, and they understand the size. I always thought that the fields were huge. And then I'd get into a tournament and think, oh my gosh, it's so small. But it's small because in my head, I've made it so big, and then it's really not that big. But I don't know. It's one of my weird things when I go to a tournament. But I think it's real important for those, even just the construction plywood 2x4s, make some field pieces that you can see what you can do.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. You can build a half a field, or depending on the game, 3/4 of field. So for people who don't have a lot of space, pick those really important pieces. Even if you can't do a half a field, if say there's goals, build those goals.
And go to your local call your carpet people and ask them if they would donate any,
Great idea.
some carpet that they don't want, or they're tossing remnants,
Mm-hmm.
or would they sponsor you and just give you a piece of crappy carpet that they're not going to sell, that they found out wasn't the right color. That's super. And I have to say that for many we've been doing this, is our 26th year, and for many years we didn't have a field, and we still were competitive, but we went to the Groveland Township Fire Department, and one year they let us put carpet down in a mini field there, and we practiced at the fire department, where they had an extra, stall open for one of the vehicles.
They had some open garages.
Yep.
We built a partial field. So
we built a partial field in a barn and practiced out of a barn for about 3 years, and that was horrible because there's no heat, and the snow would come through the vents up above, and there was always a surprise when we got to the barn. But you don't have to practice. Now, if you practice in the barn, just understand that your controls and your game pieces may not respond the same, because they're at 30 degrees instead of the temperature they need to be. We test everything at the school, get to the barn, nothing would work. And this went on for weeks. And then we realized, well, how dumb are we? It's because it's, it's 10 below zero right now, and every one of our field pieces shrunk, and the controls are like, you got to be kidding me. So we would have a car running just to bring out game pieces and rotate them so that they would stay the right size. But and even just see if there's a classroom in your building that you can use. We used to roll up the carpet and roll it out every single day. One year we went up to the cafeteria and they let us have a corner of the cafeteria. And when we got close to tournaments, we would go out and practice during lunch and let everybody see what we were doing for practice, which was really cool. So go ahead.
I was just going to put in a little pitch for the first center here. We already have the wood, and the day, as soon as it's released, we start looking at it and start figuring out, how we're going to build, what we're going to build, and what we're going to build first, what's most important, and to be able to do that. And we are open to anyone. Just contact us. And, if you're within, range and stuff, you can come in here. We'd like to, after, when people start getting their bots together, we like to be able, maybe if we can, have some matches and stuff. And we will be doing a week 0. So
I'll be there.
I
I'll be
probably
there.
will not.
Well, I don't have my own field yet, Kyle, but I'll be
we
there.
do everything we can to try to help as many teams as close as we can, and we're open to it. So
I'm going to go back to something Kyle said about getting the carpet donated. A lot of you might be working with new parents and new mentors, and every parent and mentor can play a role. When I first got involved with the Oxford RoboCats, I literally would come to kickoff. They would hand me the list of materials that they needed to build their mock field back in Oxford, and I would start going to Home Depot and Ace and Lowe's, any hardware store I could find, and just ask them, here's the list of items that I need for this high school team. Briefly, very briefly explain what they're doing, and then ask them, would you be able to help us achieve some of the things on the list? And they were amazing about contributing. So sometimes it's not always money that you need as a team. Sometimes you just need a persuasive parent that's willing to take a minivan or a pickup truck and go ask.
Yep. Getting back to the first week and talking about things that are important. One of the things I was thinking about is, as you get your electronics and you get your, it's time to start programming, and you decide what language you're going to use. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't yet. Make sure that you have somebody assigned to looking at the updates every week. Updates are super important because they're going to tell you something, and even bigger, the software updates. So when you get your controls, make sure that you have someone, it can be a student, but that they are reading through those, Frank's blog and all the updates, and they're reporting back to the mentors, the students, the team, however you want to do it. But those updates are key, because I can't tell you how many times we've gone to a tournament and, teams, they're not running on the same level as everybody else because they have not updated their technology. And so make sure that you do that.
Well, sometimes the updates also can have a critical impact on what you're designing. So
Absolutely.
you need to make sure you're up to speed every week. I think they come out on Tuesdays and Fridays or something like that. Yeah. So, but I wanted to circle back to something Kyle mentioned, and we were talking about playing fields and stuff. It's very important, and we said it's very important to get a chassis frame up and running as quickly as possible, because there's a couple. We talked about the programmers. Obviously, those poor devils have a hell of a time.
He's the mechanical guy.
They get pushed all the way to the end. But anyways, get something moving as soon as you can. But then get that, if you can get to a field, because then you can start giving your drivers an understanding, because there's going to be points on that field that are going to be kind of surprising to them, because they don't understand the field, and you're driving it around and you're going to realize, oh crap, I can't see the robot anymore. Or, oh, I can't see the scoring hole or whatever from this angle. And then make sure you pick up every spot on the, every driver station on your side of the field. And just to get a feel, give your drivers a feel of what it's like to be on the field, because it's a shame if you bring your robot in that you spent 6, 7, 8 weeks building, then all of a sudden you put your drivers on it, and all of a sudden it's just they don't know what they're doing because
Right.
they don't have any exposure to the field.
Now, if you can't see them on the field, you can always put a flag, or you could put lights on your robot. One year, I was very blessed because my son was a driver for 4 years. And one year, there was a certain place where he couldn't see the robot. And later I said to him, well, how do you see the robot? And he says, Mom, I see the lights go in and I see the lights come out. So he was always like, he was looking at the plating at the end of the field, and he was looking at the lights only in the shadows. But way back, we used to have just a stick with a flag on it so we could see where the robot was, because we built little teeny ones. If you build a big robot, you can usually see it, but that's not always an advantage either. Something I want to point out that we're going to do this year that we've never done before. My mentors don't know about it till tonight, so.
World exclusive.
But we are going to, once we understand what the game is and we understand what we want to do we want to, score in a high goal, or do we want to climb, or do we want to hang, or what is it we want to do? And then we're going to break our students up into groups, and each one of them, we're going to take a good couple hours to do research. And what we're going to do is send them to sites, Blue Alliance, whatever sites we have, and say, find out who are the winners of these games. Now, we did a little research with them back in December, but have them research outstanding teams that can do that, because then they can explain back to us, we want to do it like they did, or we want to do it like this. And there's so much information out there. When we first started, nobody shared anything with anyone. Coopetition was just starting, but nobody shared files. Now you can go out there and you can find files for different teams on their entire robot. So why not look and find out and do that research? And then when you're done, or maybe while you're doing that, don't be afraid to prototype things. Grab some wood, mock it up, and see what it's going to look like and see how it's going to work. I think our kids enjoy prototyping more than anything because it's fast, it's furious, it's creative. If someone says, hey, we should, and one of the mentors says no, I'm like, yeah, go do it, because you can always get something from that idea. And I think, you have to take advantage of the fact that the kids don't know what won't work. And so let them give you everything. And then you can look at it and say, well, maybe it didn't work 26 years ago, but you know what? That might work. That just might work today. So open up those doors and don't close them with the creativity. On that note, I just read an article about creativity, and they were saying that when you congratulate someone on a good idea, it actually stifles their creativity, because once they catch on to that's a good idea, why would they go further and look more? So when they have these great ideas, just chalk it up for, that's a great option, let's look at some more, so that they don't think it's final. Because if you just take that first idea and go with it, you're not thinking out of the box, and FIRST really wants you to think out of the box. They want something creative and new and something they haven't seen before.
It's part of the process. It's part of failing, right? And that's exactly how you learn. And if they're going to be an engineer, they better learn how to fail and how to, react quickly and stuff like that.
Yeah, our motto here is fail faster, learn more, focus and execute. So I tell these guys all the time, we are not failing fast enough. We are just not failing fast enough. Another thing I want to point out that's important are bumpers. And a lot of teams don't even think about bumpers until the very end. And then what they find out is that they put a bumper on, and now the ball no longer comes into the robot because it grabs it. or they realize that they can't even drive because the bumper is in the way and they put the wheels too close to where it needs to go. So I would highly suggest just even a mock-up with some junk material to put around these, and don't put those bumpers off to the end. They are a requirement to compete. So if you don't do this until the end, again, you know, something that we do, we have a parent that comes in and builds our bumpers. She's been doing this for 8 years now. She did it when she was a mom on the team, and now she's just an alumni mom, but she comes in every year and does our bumpers. And 2 years ago, we had like 4 different versions because we were trying new materials. And well, it was very costly for one tournament up at Kettering that year because we didn't get to compete. So we don't even know if it worked, but you know, don't forget about bumpers. I think bumpers are key. And we really didn't go through what to do each week, by the way.
Oh, but we're not done yet. But the one thing one thing I wanted to clarify, because when me and Kyle get on this, we can go for a while. You know, it just kind of evolves. When you guys talked about carpet it, right? I just want a clarification because some newer teams may be listening to this. You really have to watch what carpet you actually use. Don't go out and get 1970s shag carpet and try to drive your robot across it.
Come on, Pete. That would look so cool.
But it won't be proficient, Kyle.
How funny would it be if they reveal the game and this year it's shag carpet?
Have they ever changed the carpet though? It's always been the same, right?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? They actually have an official carpet. So I don't know what that is, but I know we had a mentor a few years ago that was into carpet. So they do have an official carpet. And I will say that there are teams out there because carpet actually has a direction. And so there are teams that they will go out and inspect the tournaments to find out which direction the carpet is leaning, I guess. And all of their code, their auton especially, is determined by whether it's this side or that side. So yeah, there's some crazy people out there. That's too much for me, but I'm just saying, yeah, shag would not be good.
And you guys made a great point about the practice elements, right? You don't have to have a lot of room, but you have to build something to understand how to react to it and how to interact with it. So, and just as an example, my team, our school board has a men's carpentry team. Like they build stuff together. So they've, ever since we've been around, they say, Pete, what are the practice elements that you want us to build? We give it to them. And within a week we have practice elements.
Cool.
So it's always good. Reach out to your school boards too, and see if anyone does a wood shop or something like that.
You know, Pete, and a good point that you just made is it's super important to reach out to as many people as you can, because then you're going to be supported by more. So if you can get another group or another organization, you know, maybe you have an organization in town that's willing to, you know, help with some carpet, and you there become a sponsor, make sure that you recognize them. That's a whole nother podcast, but you know, make sure that you recognize them. But now they're rooting for you. And so anytime you can grab a class, I would suggest you go to your graphic arts classes and ask them to help you with some logos and some, you know, some of the stuff that you need for the graphic arts. You know, there's so many ways that you can tie other we have a photography class here in this building. Well, I would love nothing more for them to come down and do, we have a video program here, have them come down and, you know, do our reveal. So we're not doing it because we don't have time to do it. Russia's never had a reveal, but who knows, maybe this year it'll be different. We were going to 2 years ago after Kettering.
It's tough. It's tough.
So we talked about 1 and 2, right? We talked about weeks 1 and 2, which is the game is just coming out. Then you analyze the game. You kind of start prototyping. You look at the drive bases. I'm going to use the swerve word because everyone loves the swerve word. You know, is it a swerve compatible game, or is it a tank, or is it a mechanum or mecha? However you want to say that word.
Omnis.
Yeah, omnis. You want to use omnis. You want to drift. What's the, you know, want to drive circles around people? Those are the couple of weeks. What about 3 and 4 though? Because you're kind of going into that design, so you have to cut a place where you guys start getting to a, you know, a more of a design philosophy to build that forward, right, Dennis?
Right. I guess, yeah, that's kind of critical because that's when everyone is crashing and burning in the shop. That's when your supply chain issues are starting to really cause a problem.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to redesign, but I guess it's the matter of you need to get something up and moving as quickly as possible so you can find the weak spots or you can find the areas that aren't really working like you want them to
Mhm.
because you got to find those quickly so you can go back, turn around, and kick off some redesigns or reinforce some different areas or whatever. So
How much do you guys use? Say it's something you can use from the past. Do you go back and use those designs to start and kick off with to make it simpler? Or do you just say, look at this and design it from scratch?
Depends on our resources.
well, I would say
Good answer.
up until this year, our chassis drivetrain has been pretty much carryover for the past 10 years. So that's why we chose to do that early on just to say because we wanted to kick off and get our chassis up and running as quickly as possible. So it's just a matter of, we make a decision of the overall frame perimeter size. And then from that point, or if I got to go over something, under something or whatever, then I know the
The
size.
wheels, yeah.
Right? Wheel size.
Yep.
Boom. We just copy what we've done before, what we know. So that's
So that simplifies it a lot.
Yeah, for returning
Yeah.
they get into that
Right.
routine. For the new teams, I would highly suggest they do the kit, robot, and really honestly go to Clinton Brandy's, 1 day kickoff, build the robot thing that they've done for years. I don't know if they're doing it this year, but I know they did it for many, many years. Where you'd go in on Sunday and make sure that you had a robot that was they would having something moving. And that was huge. That was huge for those rookie teams because they would leave on Sunday with something that's already driving around.
Right.
The other point that Dennis made about the drivers and getting the drivers to just understand, it's like a race car. If you have a great car, but the driver doesn't know how to drive it, you are not
Yeah.
going to win anything. So even if you had your drivers just out there tooling around and doing figure eights, let them play with figure eights. When we first got our field here, my kids would come in at lunch and I would make them, because manipulating a rolling ball is always difficult. So I would make them take a ball and bounce it off the wall and catch it and bounce it off the wall with the robot and do all sorts of little stupid things. Just because we could. I didn't need a field, but if you could, if balls are what we're going to work with and you have a moving chassis, have them start working with it because most of the time they'll drive over the ball and you don't want them to drive over the ball. So how do they push a ball? How do they move a ball? How do they catch a ball? How do they grab a ball? And whatever that device is, there's got to be a lot of thought into doing that action and then how can you make it simpler. So as you've got to first figure out how to do it, and then is there a better way to do it?
I guess going back to Pete's question of, what do you do in week 3 and week 4 and 5? Something that we've always tried to do is we push really hard for modular building, meaning let's say you have 3 or 4 sub teams. You agree upon that you're going to have an intake sub team, you're going to have a lift sub team, you're going to have a hanging end game sub team. Push them so the subgroups can build up as much as they can on a bench, as opposed to you have to have time with the robot. The less time you can spend trying to work with a chassis on it, that's more time that the programmers and electrical guys can get their work done. And if you can just, we've fabricated like those carpet dolly things where we would take our module, put it on there and push it around the field or whatever, just to see, get an understanding of, if it's going to pick up a ball or not or whatever. So the more you can do a bench build type modular concept, the better off you're going to be, because then you can just marry it up to the robot, and your confidence level is much higher because you've done things in the shop on the bench, knowing that it's going to work.
But that kind of means that you have to really have it catted out to make sure you know how it's going to assemble, right?
Well, it helps, but for teams that can't, they just have to know that this piece has got to marry on top of there. They get that to work. They take it off then, and then you've got your electrical that can wire up that mechanism. You've got your programmers that can, put a hand drill gun to it to make sure, that it's working. And then when it comes back, you've already fit it to that space. I think it's really hard for new teams that don't have CAD experience, because they're literally building it from the bottom up. And we did that for years. We did that. I mean, there are certain parts that were, built. But I remember once we shipped our robot to the first tournament in a crate with wood 2x4s to hold up certain parts because it wasn't done yet. And so, I mean, we sent wood in our crate as part of our robot. But, John, not everybody's going to have that opportunity to CAD the whole thing out. But if you have a CAD class, you might have a CAD teacher that could help you.
I guess if you don't have, CAD experience, or CAD's not available, then I would highly suggest every couple days you need to have like a whole group design review, so everyone can talk about what they're doing, so everyone has an understanding. Oh, I always call it the big real estate grab, because everyone's trying to grab real estate. So it's like, as long as you're all communicating, you can define those hard points. Say, the upper chassis guys are going to get these areas here to attach to. Everyone else stay away from them. Or the ball collector group is going to be attaching here, so freeze that area for them.
John, to address what you just said, so this is something we're implementing in my team this year, is we're doing an engineering notebook. Every child's going to get an engineering notebook, and basically it's just graph paper in a folder, right? A binded folder, and they can all, design stuff out in it and make notes of everything that they're doing, so everyone understands at any one time what we're doing, as well as you can do the engineering inspiration with that. And we're trying to build that recourse so that we can put that award up in the future. So we're starting that. We have very limited CAD experience on my team. We don't have a CADing class in the school, so we're teaching. Some of the kids are learning it. I think kids can learn it very easily from, there's resources out there. If they put the controllers down from video games and pay attention to CAD, they can learn to CAD pretty quickly. And when there's free resources that we get through FIRST to get licensing for CAD software, so there's no reason you can't. But in the case of, like Dennis is saying, where all the kids are intertwined and they all know what's going on, an engineering notebook is a really cheap way to get that done.
I want to mention CADing. I teach in the 9th grade and 10th grade. It's Tinkercad, tinkercad.com. And they can go in and they can do all sorts of stuff. And if they are into, there's different levels that they can do, but the modeling that they do, they all have to come up with some idea, either an improvement to an idea or an idea, something that they need. And then they are to model it up, and then we 3D print it for them. For instance, one of the biggest ones that came up last spring was to create a hook in your car that would hook onto the air vent, just a simple little hook. So when you got in, you could take your mask off and hook it on that. I said, how many of you have masks all over your car? And they're all like, so, I mean, this is something simple that they modeled and they printed off, and it was really cool to have them do their own, their own idea. And that's, Pete, how they get started, because then, they look at that and they go, I would bet that your kids, Pete, could build your robot not a detailed, but they could take, as Dennis was saying, the real estate grab and have it be done in Tinkercad, because it's so easy, because it's big blocks, and it's essentially what you do in any other software. It's just, it's a Lego as opposed to a machine shop.
Exactly.
And it's good. Tinkercad.com. We run summer camps for younger kids, and then we also have a curriculum. So if anyone is interested, I'd be glad to share that with them.
Cool. Thank you very much, Kyle.
I think
And
Dennis used a key word a little bit ago, was communication. Communication is going to be the key to your entire season, especially your build season. The more your subgroups can communicate and have those design reviews, the lower you can keep that overall stress level. Imagine putting in a week designing something to take it over to the robot and there's no room for it. That creates so much frustration. So communication would be the huge.
Right.
We have weekly design reviews. Actually, students present, the sub-team leaders present, and then we do like a mentor
Nuts and bolts.
early birds on a Saturday morning. Every Saturday morning we kind of review. But I would suggest that even if you, like I said, if you don't have CAD or whatever, and we've done this too, is at the end of the meeting, just do a quick 5-minute stand-up meeting. Everyone huddles up around something, maybe it's your chassis that you started, and then just walk around. Everyone just say 2 minutes of what they accomplished that day, or what their direction is, or what they're doing. So like Kim was saying, so everyone knows what's going on, or what everyone else is thinking, because then you get a better understanding of.
And it's a great time too to share what your sub team needs from other sub teams.
Right.
We started doing the 5-minute stand-ups at the end of the meeting 2 years ago, and we still do it. It's amazing because everybody's on board at, the last 5 minutes, and they're all like, oh yeah, tomorrow when I get here, I'll help you with this or whatever. But it also kind of helps establish a goal for the next day, which is important.
One other note I wanted to throw out as we're talking, like, what do you do in week 3 and 4 and stuff? You should, each team should probably print off a copy of the inspection sheet.
Oh yeah.
And start getting something put together, have some of the students start walking through the inspection sheet just to make sure that they're going in the right direction when it comes to the requirements.
That's a great idea.
Possibly contact a veteran team and see if they have a mentor that could come over and pre-inspect your robot before you go to competition. One of our mentors is an inspector, and he has helped other teams out by going over and then actually talking to them ahead of time. So, reach out. Before I forget, I just want to mention Team Rush has an old but functional resource. It hasn't been updated in the last few years, but it still is an amazing resource for new coaches, whether you're a new team or not. New coaches should, I think, all read this. Pete, you read it, didn't you?
I read it.
Yeah, the 300-page online version, don't ever print it. It costs way too much money. But it's called the Team Rush Toolkit. So if you go to teamrush27.net and you go over to resources and hit the toolkit toolkit's an amazing document. And actually, we had 2 parents that helped us compile that. So they spent an entire season, actually a few years, going through and adding and cleaning and fixing. And then we did rookie resource calls with teams, and we added those chapters. And then we're still adding chapters. So it's an amazing resource, and it really helps out. Do you know if the state or anyone is doing anything for Rookies Weekly this year other than the RoboZone podcast?
I don't know of anything that is scheduled right now.
Okay. All right. Because I know
Maybe we should.
I was going to say that something we used to do is just to kind of pop in and say, hey, this week, these are the things that you should be keeping in mind. And actually just going through possibly the build chapter. Pete, if you want to look at that and think it over, I think that we'd be more than happy to do something like that.
And
You
we'd
just
be
signed
more than
yourself
happy
up,
to
young
help
lady.
you out too.
Well, I'm sorry, what?
I said you just signed yourself up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great, Kyle. Thank you.
I said, Pete, if you think we should.
I know. I liked Dennis's reaction to what I said because he just did this.
But we'd be glad to help you, Pete, because
Yes.
I think more than just rookies need it. Again, there
I-
are so many teams out there.
Yep.
One team here in 2 years ago was a rookie team,
Yep.
right? And I met with them last night, and she's kind of scared.
Mhm.
It's Red Eye Robotics, and she's got one or two girls coming back. It's an all girls team.
Yeah.
That is, and she's like, "What do I do now? What do I do now?" I said, "You come in here and you show up."
Yep.
I
So
said, "We
what-
will help you and guide you down the path," right? But there are teams like that that don't have a place to go, like
Right.
a robotics center and stuff like that. And that, I think, that idea to be able to go out there, not just to help rookies, but to help the rebooting teams, I
Yeah.
think is an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Good point, Kyle. I will do that. I promise I'll read that chapter again. I have it printed. I did print it. Two-sided though. Two-sided. I saved myself
me-
some.
I may have given you a copy at one
You
point.
did. I still have it. It's binded.
I should
Um,
sign it for you.
But we did a series a couple years ago when we first started the podcast, and it went through what rookie teams should do. I think that's the same. If it was 5 years ago to now, it's kind of the same. We'll use your chapter, and what we'll do is after this week, we'll say this is week 1 because we're going to have weekly interviews with John and Kim. We'll say your team should be doing this, and we'll just use that going forward.
And we'd be more than happy to help out in any way.
Sure.
Yeah, we can have you guys jump on.
Oh, I'd love it. That's what I used to be like the guest speaker because I would not sit.
So that's every Wednesday at 5 o'clock for the next 6 weeks.
That's why Dennis did that. He did the. So
Um,
we
So where
talked
are we
about
at?
where we at. We're at 48 minutes.
No, I'm saying for week 5, are we?
Oh yeah, that's where I was coming to. So we talked about 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're talking about 5, 6, and week 0 because I think it's a very important piece that we haven't talked. That's the next step after build season. But what are we doing in 5 and 6, Kyle?
5 and 6, the robot should be moving and you should be testing everything and you should be practicing and you should be failing as fast as you can and the bumper should be on and you should have all your paperwork and everything done and ready for the tournament because it's going to come up overnight on you and you're going to realize you don't have anything done. Week 5, again, that's a time, there's a lot of administration work that needs to be done. T-shirts need to be ordered. Sponsorship labels and things need to go on your robot so that your robot can be identified by your sponsors. But really, truly, those 2 weeks are auton, testing, driving, practicing, failing, figuring out what the backup plan is going to be if this happens at a tournament, and getting ready for that week 0 competition that you want to go to. You really want to go to a week 0 competition.
If you want to fail, that's the biggest point to fail because then you can, depending on when your events are scheduled for your team. I'm a firm believer in week 1 comps. I competed with you the last time we were at a full comp week 1 2 years ago. But week 0s are amazing, and Kettering's a perfect resource because they host one. So,
And I
A
guess
lot of teams will opt not to go to a week 0 because they say their robot isn't done.
Yep, it's
Go, because there's teams there that will help you and it can really escalate where you're going to be for your first competition. So don't go because you're not done, go because there's help.
Or at least go and watch, right? And we will be, streaming the week 0. So people will be able to see what's going on, what works, what doesn't work,
Mhm.
and things like that, and how the teams interact and stuff.
That's a beautiful comment because I think one of the greatest things that you can learn from is watching others. And so if you
Yeah.
go to week 0, you might say, wow, we can do this and we didn't even think about this as an option. We might have a robot that, draws balls in and we have an exit mode in case it gets stuck. And then all of a sudden realize, you know what, we could just park it and feed our other robot. And we never even thought about that. Like that wasn't even on our plan. Watch as many matches as you can. Watch the live feed if you can't physically get there, because just watching brings so much value to how you do things. And like we were talking earlier, once you can do something, the question is, how can you do it as efficiently as possible? And that's what you might see at a tournament.
I have
Dennis,
two
you wanted to
questions.
say something.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say from another suggestion is from a timing standpoint, I would hold that week 0 as your robot complete.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you have time that you can actually start, maybe take your robot to week 0, or you can take the time to actually go and watch. Maybe the game is not going to be played like you thought it was going to be played. So,
Mhm.
or maybe you'll see something that, oh, we make a couple little changes here. I can do exactly what they're doing, that kind of stuff. So, but your robot complete date shouldn't be the Friday or the Thursday before your first competition.
Right.
It should probably be the first week of competitions. You should be basically robot complete.
Great. There's one thing that none of us has said yet. That's our next episode next week for the RoboZone. So it's a shameless plug for the podcast, sponsored by Kettering University, is the robot in 3 days
Oh yeah.
stuff. Watch it.
Mhm.
Watch. If people don't know what we're talking about, just type it in YouTube, robot in 3 days, or R1 3D.
All right, 3D.
Yep. And you can springboard your team quickly, because sometimes you guys have an idea, they try it out and they're like, no, it's not going to work. So you don't have to waste that valuable time, especially if you're a new team.
Right, right. I do also want to have a shameless plug, and that is, as a Woody Flowers Award winner, it's about gracious professionalism. And I want to mention that because FIRST is really talking to us and has been talking to us. We've been talking to them and saying, we're concerned. We've lost 2 years of students. Kids coming in don't understand what this is all about. And gracious professionalism is one of the most core parts of FIRST. And so I just want to say out there to those coaches, find out what it's about, because gracious professionalism cannot be defined, but you know it when you see it. And it's being kind to your competitors, helping your partners, helping your competitors, having good competition and learning from each other. There's just so many. The Woody Flowers group has tried to define it, and we all just look at each other and go, yeah, no, to one person, it's completely different than to somebody else. But we have to be advocates of continuing that culture, or this is going to change. Our program FIRST won't be the same if we let it go. So this year is going to be a real tough year and a strong year for making sure that everybody behaves themselves. And you all know people are crazy right now. So it's even more important that we all say, look, leave the craziness outside. We need to be one again and be FIRST.
Keep
That
Woody
is-
in our minds and our
Well
hearts.
said.
Well,
Well said.
And as she said, we were going to have a whole new group of students. They don't know who that is, right? They don't know that concept. But probably one of the easiest ways I could say is, you're at a competition and you're hoping to win awards, right? And who's going to make those decisions are the judges. Pretend like there's always a judge sitting on your shoulder. How would you act and how would you talk if they're sitting there?
Yep.
That's how you should always speak to every team member when you're in the restroom, when you're having lunch, because you never know who is nearby that overhears something that you say and that impacts.
And as Woody Flowers would say, imagine your grandmother is watching. Grandmother is watching. How would you behave?
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I had to kidnap the show for a moment because that's super important to me.
It is. It is.
Great point. Great point, Kyle.
And that's why we're bringing teams like Rush onto these podcasts, right? Because they have years of experience, they have years of success, they understand the spirit of FIRST. And so they're able to show us those things in the podcast and help set the path for whoever's watching.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. That was So it's cool.
I do hope First does something special about remembering Woody or something in the kickoff.
We're working on it. We've got a video that we're going to be showing at kickoff, and then we'll be doing the good stuff videos again at the tournaments. How much more of that's going to go on, I don't. Oh, we do have something kind of cool that's going to happen. I cannot disclose yet, but Woody will be visiting tournaments, so that'll be fun.
Good teaser.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think it's going to be really cool, actually.
Well,
Anything else that you guys would want to say that's really critical about a timeline, why it's so helpful?
I think that it's important for you to set goals. I think that you need to look at the 6 weeks and say, how are we going to build this with the resources we have? If you say by the end of the first week, the robot has to move, that's a great goal. Make sure that within these goals, when updates to software, did you get your supplies? Are you purchasing your things? But more than anything, when you leave a meeting, especially for these new teams, do you know what you're going to do tomorrow? Like, do you have a plan for the next day? If you just say the robot's going to move by Friday, it is not going to move by Friday unless you have some concrete process. So if you can define what that process is going to be. What does it mean to have the robot move? You have to build the chassis, you have to wire it, and you have to download code. So there's a lot that has to be done during that week. Well, then who can do it? So if you don't have an electrical person, who's going to start reading about how to wire a robot or call a rookie, call a veteran team to do it? So I think for me, it's really important that you have a plan at least for the next day, because then you know what you're doing when you're coming in. And really, I think if there's only 8 rookies out there, I really hope that Michigan does something to pair them up with another team so that they have a partner through this process, because I know there's other teams that need help too. The only other last little plug for rookies, you're only a rookie once. So whenever you can, say, I didn't know. Because you can only do it once, and then your sophomore year, you're kind of screwed because nobody cares. They said, you did this last year, you didn't know. So let them know.
It's a true story.
I tell all my rookies, I'm like, man, use it as much as you can, because next year it won't matter. But ask for help. Everyone, think of it this way. I say this all the time. Everyone loves a fresh new baby coming home, right? A new baby from the house. Everybody loves the baby. They smell good. They're small. They don't talk back. They're wonderful. But then that first year, after they've gone through 1 year, people are like, don't bring that child around me. It's a different story. Everyone loves a rookie. Sophomore year, you're on your own. You're on your own. But we'll be here to help you this year.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Dennis. So Kim and John, do we have anything else before we do our goodbyes?
Our 20-minute club?
I think we covered just about everything, didn't we?
I would say tune in every Wednesday at 5. However, our next one is
A double header.
double header. We will have the Robot in 3-Day. We'll have a young man and a young lady from the Robot in 3-Day at Kettering. They're going to share what they learned, what challenges they encountered, basically, giving you a head start of what you might encounter and how you can avoid it. And then we're going to have strategy dictates design with Clinton Bollinger from the Engine Nerds. And that's going to speak a lot to what Kyle and Dennis have already shared, is your build really depends on what it is you're after. And different teams might have a different strategy. But every team can be valuable and effective if you build to your capabilities and to your strategy. So we're excited about that. And then each week, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, we'll be on. We got the Robo Wranglers coming up. Pretty exciting.
Can't wait. I have their t-shirt too. Just not a team t-shirt. They're very specific.
Awesome.
You can't get a team t-shirt and you're on the team, but I got one that says Robo Wranglers. So
Gotcha.
And that one will be exciting because I'm actually going to be on site at their facility. So we'll be live streaming live from there. Looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Kyle and Dennis, we want to thank you for making yourself available, for volunteering yourself for ongoing interviews for the next 8-10 weeks. Not you, Dennis. Excuse you. We'll make sure Kyle's on. But we want to thank you for coming on board. How can we follow Team Rush?
teamrush27.net. We're also on Facebook, and we should be reactivating Twitter sometime soon. Students who did Twitter are long gone. So basically, Facebook is probably the best place to find us, or just go to our website, and we're going to be updating soon. Everything will start on Saturday. So, our updates will all be coming live again.
Awesome.
Live. I like live again. That sounds really
This
good.
is gonna be interesting.
So
Good, good.
excited.
Good place to end. So I'm going to wish you guys all a great night. Safe travels if you're driving home. It's snowing outside here in Michigan. And we'll
Mhm.
talk to you very soon.
I want to wish everyone again a Happy New
Yes.
Year and
Happy
good,
New Year.
good luck
Thank
this
you.
year.
Thank you.
See you
and 'cause
guys.
it's
Good
gonna
night.
be interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.